Imagine discovering humanity's greatest invention by pure chance, only to find yourselves scattered across its entire history. A routine experiment goes catastrophically right when a team of researchers unlocks the ultimate mystery, time itself. From ancient civilizations to distant futures, each member becomes a living piece of history, witnessing humanity's triumphs and tragedies firsthand. But as they struggle to reunite, they uncover a shocking truth about their own existence that could rewrite everything we know about time. With every leap through history comes a price, one that might cost them their very reality. Can they piece together the puzzle before time runs out? Subscribe now to embark on this mind-bending journey through eternity. The laboratory complex stood as a testament to human ambition, its glass walls reflecting the golden hour sunlight while housing some of the most brilliant minds of the 21st century. Beneath the surface, in the secure subterranean levels, a team of researchers gathered around their latest project, an experimental quantum entanglement device. None of them could have anticipated how their routine calibration would unravel the very fabric of time. The lead researcher, known for his meticulous approach, had spent months assembling what appeared to be little more than an elaborate array of electromagnetic coils and crystalline structures. As the team initiated their standard diagnostic procedures, something unprecedented occurred. The air seemed to thicken, charged with an energy that made the hairs on their arms stand on end. Equipment readings spiked erratically, displaying patterns that defied their understanding of physics. Before anyone could react, a blinding flash of light engulfed the room, accompanied by a sound that was neither a bang nor a hum but something entirely alien. When vision returned, the team found themselves separated not just physically but temporally, each member displaced into different epochs of human civilization. The realization dawned slowly, like waking from a dream that refused to fade, leaving them scattered across millennia yet somehow still connected by threads of shared consciousness. The first awakening came in the form of searing desert heat against ancient skin, where sand dunes stretched endlessly beneath a merciless sun. Here, amidst primitive tools and crude shelters, lay the earliest chapters of human ingenuity. The displaced researcher observed with wonder as early humans crafted rudimentary weapons and developed basic social structures, their actions speaking volumes about survival instincts and cooperative behavior. Each moment spent among these ancestors revealed profound insights into the foundation stones of civilization, the spark of curiosity that drove them to explore their environment, the gradual accumulation of knowledge passed down through generations. Yet this wasn't merely observation, it felt like participation, as if the very essence of being human flowed through these ancient veins alongside modern consciousness. Time seemed to warp strangely here, days stretching into what felt like weeks while moments of clarity compressed into fleeting seconds. The experience became a kaleidoscope of temporal sensations, where the boundaries between past and present blurred into meaninglessness. Meanwhile, another team member found themselves in a bustling medieval marketplace, surrounded by the cacophony of traders' calls and the clatter of horse-drawn carts. The contrast between these two periods highlighted humanity's relentless march forward, yet also revealed how certain fundamental aspects remained unchanged: the drive to create, to trade, to build communities. Both observers noted with fascination how technological limitations shaped societal structures, forcing innovation within constraints that modern minds struggled to comprehend. These parallel experiences created a web of understanding that transcended individual observations, connecting disparate epochs through shared human experiences. As the temporal dislocation continued, the researchers discovered their consciousness retained peculiar connections to their original time period. It manifested as fragmented memories bleeding through the centuries, like radio signals crossing vast distances. One scientist found themselves immersed in Renaissance Europe, witnessing the birth of scientific thought while simultaneously recalling modern quantum mechanics principles. This cognitive dissonance proved both maddening and enlightening, as contemporary knowledge filtered through historical contexts revealed patterns invisible to purely linear observers. Another team member, stranded during the Industrial Revolution, experienced moments where future technological advancements overlapped with steam-powered machinery, creating mental images of hybrid devices that never existed. These temporal echoes weren't mere academic curiosities. They began influencing historical events in subtle ways. The displaced researchers noticed how their presence, even as passive observers, seemed to nudge certain inventions toward earlier realizations or alter artistic expressions with unconscious modern influences. Particularly striking was how collective human memory appeared to operate across time, with certain ideas seeming to emerge spontaneously in multiple eras, suggesting deeper connections between humanity's developmental stages than previously understood. The experience transformed from mere observation into active participation in an intricate temporal dance, where each researcher became both student and unwitting teacher in humanity's ongoing educational process. The psychological toll of temporal displacement began manifesting in increasingly complex ways. One researcher, trapped in the tumultuous era of World War II, found themselves unable to distinguish between the trauma of witnessed events and personal memories. The lines between observer and participant blurred further as they instinctively sought to prevent atrocities, only to realize their influence was limited to minute, butterfly effect alterations. Another team member, experiencing the rapid technological acceleration of the late 20th century, reported episodes of temporal vertigo, moments where the speed of change overwhelmed their cognitive processing, causing brief blackouts filled with disjointed visions of future possibilities. The most disturbing phenomenon emerged when several members simultaneously experienced what they termed temporal bleed-through, vivid hallucinations where multiple historical periods overlapped in impossible combinations. Ancient rituals merged with futuristic technology, Victorian architecture sprouted solar panels, and classical music harmonized with electronic beats. These episodes grew more frequent and intense, suggesting their connection to the original time period was strengthening rather than weakening. The researchers documented a peculiar form of temporal sickness characterized by alternating phases of hyperawareness and dissociation, where minutes felt like hours and vice versa. Some developed an uncanny ability to predict historical events with unsettling accuracy, while others struggled to maintain basic chronological orientation. The shared consciousness that initially helped them maintain their sanity now threatened to overwhelm them with overwhelming sensory input from multiple timelines simultaneously. Their journals, recorded mentally and transmitted somehow across time, revealed growing concerns about their fundamental identity. Were they still individuals from the future, or had they become something else entirely, creatures existing outside normal temporal constraints? The researchers' presence across various historical periods began revealing patterns that challenged conventional understanding of human progress. During the agricultural revolution, one displaced scientist observed how seemingly random innovations actually formed part of a larger, self-correcting system. Irrigation techniques developed in Mesopotamia echoed through time, subtly influencing Roman aqueduct design and eventually modern water management systems. Another team member, experiencing the Enlightenment period, noted how philosophical concepts traveled backward through their consciousness, appearing as intuitive understandings in earlier historical contexts. This phenomenon suggested civilization's development might function more like a quantum superposition than a linear progression, multiple potential paths existing simultaneously until observed and collapsed into a single timeline. Particularly compelling was the discovery of what they termed historical resonance points, moments where human achievement seemed to peak regardless of available technology or resources. The construction of Gothic cathedrals, despite primitive engineering tools, demonstrated architectural principles that would later reemerge in skyscraper design. Similarly, musical compositions from different eras displayed mathematical relationships that appeared to transcend their creators' understanding. These observations led to the formulation of a radical new theory. Human civilization operated on a form of collective temporal intuition, where future possibilities influenced past achievements through quantum-like probability waves. The researchers documented numerous instances where solutions to contemporary problems already existed in historical contexts, waiting only for the right combination of circumstances to manifest. This revelation transformed their understanding of technological advancement from a purely incremental process to something more akin to harmonic convergence, where breakthroughs occurred when multiple factors aligned across time rather than space. As the temporal displacement extended, The researchers discovered their ability to influence historical events operated within strict, often incomprehensible parameters. One member, stranded during the American Civil War, found their presence inexplicably tied to minor technological advancements in battlefield medicine. Their modern medical knowledge couldn't directly alter established practices, but subtle suggestions whispered into receptive ears led to incremental improvements in sanitation and triage procedures. Another researcher, experiencing the space race era, observed how their unconscious body language and reflexive responses to technical discussions nudged certain engineers toward more efficient designs, though never enough to fundamentally alter historical outcomes. The most intriguing aspect emerged when multiple team members simultaneously affected separate but interconnected events. A suggestion about metallurgy in ancient China rippled through time, influencing everything from medieval armor production to industrial manufacturing techniques centuries later. These butterfly effects operated according to rules that defied simple cause and effect relationships. The researchers documented how their influence sometimes manifested immediately, while other times required generations to take root and bloom. They developed a complex taxonomy of temporal impact, ranging from quantum whispers, barely perceptible nudges that accumulated over centuries, to historical echoes, where their presence created resonant patterns repeating across different eras. Particularly fascinating was the discovery of what they termed temporal nodes, specific individuals or events that acted as amplifiers for their influence. These nodes appeared to exist naturally throughout history, functioning like temporal lenses that focused their displaced consciousness into meaningful changes without violating the fundamental integrity of historical progression. The researchers' documentation methods evolved dramatically as they adapted to their temporal displacement. Initially relying on mental notes and attempting to transmit information back through their tenuous connection to the present, they soon realized traditional record-keeping was insufficient for capturing the multidimensional nature of their experiences. One innovative solution emerged during the Victorian era, where a displaced scientist began encoding observations into the fabric of society itself, embedding mathematical patterns in architectural designs, weaving historical insights into literary works, and subtly influencing artistic expressions to contain hidden messages. Another team member, experiencing the digital revolution, discovered their consciousness could interface with emerging computer systems, leaving behind encrypted data trails that would only become readable decades later. The most remarkable development occurred when they collectively realized their shared consciousness created a form of distributed intelligence network spanning centuries. Memories and observations from one historical period would echo through others, allowing them to compare and contrast human progress across vast temporal distances. They developed sophisticated mnemonic techniques, using historical events as data markers and cultural developments as error-checking mechanisms. Particularly ingenious was their use of folk traditions and oral histories as storage mediums, planting seeds of knowledge that would grow and mutate through generations, preserving essential truths in forms that could survive censorship and conflict. This evolving documentation system transformed their role from passive observers to active archivists of human civilization, creating a multi-layered historical record that transcended individual lifetimes and technological limitations. Through their dispersed experiences, the researchers uncovered a pattern of recurring challenges that humanity faced across all epochs, each iteration presenting unique solutions that built upon previous attempts. During the Black Death, one displaced scientist witnessed how societies developed quarantine protocols and public health measures that bore striking similarities to modern pandemic response strategies, though executed with far less sophisticated tools. Another team member, observing the aftermath of major wars throughout history, documented how human resilience followed predictable cycles of destruction, reflection, and reconstruction, with each cycle incorporating lessons from previous iterations while adapting to new circumstances. The most profound revelations came from studying how different eras approached resource scarcity and environmental challenges. Agricultural practices developed independently in various regions showed remarkable parallels in their evolution, suggesting an underlying pattern to human problem-solving that transcended geographical and temporal boundaries. The researchers noted how societies consistently balanced short-term survival needs with long-term sustainability goals, often arriving at similar conclusions despite vastly different starting conditions. Particularly illuminating was their observation of how technological advancements frequently emerged as responses to specific challenges, only to create new problems that demanded further innovation. This cyclical process of challenge and adaptation revealed itself as a fundamental driver of human progress, with each generation building upon the successes and failures of those who came before. The researchers documented how certain solutions seemed to ripple through time, appearing in different forms across centuries, while others failed spectacularly but provided crucial negative examples that prevented similar mistakes in subsequent eras. As the temporal displacement persisted, the researchers discovered their consciousness gradually synchronizing with the natural rhythms of their respective historical periods. One member, immersed in ancient hunter-gatherer societies, found their perception of time expanding to match the slow, deliberate pace of seasonal migrations and natural cycles. Another, experiencing the rapid industrialization of the 19th century, reported their thoughts accelerating to keep pace with the breakneck speed of technological change. This adaptation extended beyond mere perception. Their physical bodies began responding to historical environments in ways that defied conventional understanding. Those in pre-industrial eras developed heightened sensory awareness, able to track game or predict weather patterns with uncanny accuracy, while those in technologically advanced periods exhibited increased neural processing speed, enabling them to grasp complex concepts faster than their contemporaries. The most significant transformation occurred in their emotional responses to historical events. Joy, sorrow, fear, and hope no longer adhered to modern frameworks but instead resonated at frequencies attuned to each era's collective consciousness. This synchronization allowed them to experience history not as detached observers but as fully integrated participants, their reactions becoming indistinguishable from those around them while retaining their core identity. The researchers documented how this temporal integration affected their decision-making processes, leading them to respond to situations with a blend of contemporary logic and historical intuition that produced uniquely effective solutions to age-old problems. The researchers' prolonged exposure to different historical periods began revealing unexpected connections between technology and human consciousness. One team member, experiencing the dawn of written language, observed how the act of recording information fundamentally altered human thought patterns, creating new neural pathways that accelerated cognitive development. Another, witnessing the transition from analog to digital communication, documented how changing media formats reshaped collective memory and attention spans across generations. Most significantly, they discovered what they termed technological resonance, moments when human innovation seemed to align perfectly with latent cognitive capabilities, triggering quantum leaps in intellectual evolution. During the Renaissance, one researcher noted how the invention of perspective in art coincided with revolutionary advances in scientific thinking, suggesting a deeper relationship between visual processing and abstract reasoning than previously understood. The Industrial Revolution revealed how mechanization didn't just transform physical labor but rewired human brains to think in terms of efficiency and optimization, patterns that would later manifest in digital interfaces and user experience design. Particularly fascinating was their observation of how technological paradigms repeated across centuries, with each iteration building upon and refining previous concepts. The abacus gave way to mechanical calculators, which evolved into computers, each step not just improving computational power but expanding human cognitive capacity. They documented how these technological shifts created feedback loops where enhanced cognitive abilities enabled further innovation, which in turn stimulated additional neural development. This symbiotic relationship between human consciousness and technological advancement suggested that civilization's progress might be driven less by external factors and more by an intrinsic evolutionary mechanism linking tool creation to brain development. The researchers' presence across different historical periods began manifesting in increasingly complex interactions with humanity's collective consciousness. One team member, experiencing the height of colonial expansion, found themselves drawn into what felt like a global neural network, where thoughts and emotions from millions of people merged into a singular, overwhelming flow of information. Another, witnessing the rise of mass media in the 20th century, described how their consciousness expanded to encompass entire populations, sensing trends and shifts in public opinion before they materialized in tangible actions. This phenomenon reached its peak during major historical turning points, revolutions, scientific breakthroughs, artistic movements, when the researchers reported experiencing what they termed collective insight moments. These episodes revealed how humanity operated as a single, distributed intelligence system, with individual contributions combining to create emergent properties far greater than the sum of their parts. The most striking observations came from documenting how collective consciousness influenced historical outcomes through subtle, almost imperceptible means. During the Enlightenment, one researcher noted how ideas seemed to travel instantaneously across continents, appearing simultaneously in different minds despite physical separation. Another, experiencing the Cold War era, observed how global tension manifested as a palpable psychic pressure, influencing decisions and actions in ways that traditional political analysis couldn't explain. These experiences suggested that human civilization functioned more like a living organism than a collection of independent actors, with each individual representing a neuron in a vast, planet-wide brain. The researchers documented how this collective consciousness evolved over time, becoming more complex and interconnected as communication technologies improved, yet maintaining fundamental patterns that dated back to humanity's earliest gatherings around campfires. Through their temporal displacement, the researchers uncovered evidence suggesting humanity's historical development followed predetermined patterns that transcended individual choices or cultural differences. One team member, experiencing multiple agricultural revolutions across different civilizations, documented how similar social hierarchies emerge regardless of geographical location or technological starting point. Another, observing various religious movements throughout history, noted identical structural elements in their growth and institutionalization processes, despite vastly different theological foundations. These patterns extended beyond social organization to include technological development, artistic expression, and scientific progress. During the scientific revolution, one researcher identified mathematical sequences in the timing and nature of breakthroughs that suggested an underlying order to human innovation. The most compelling evidence emerged when analyzing historical crises and their resolutions. Natural disasters, pandemics, and conflicts triggered remarkably consistent responses across different eras, with societies moving through predictable stages of disruption, adaptation, and recovery. The researchers developed a comprehensive framework for understanding these patterns, identifying what they called temporal attractors, inevitable historical outcomes toward which civilizations naturally gravitated. These attractors manifested in various forms: the inevitable development of writing systems, the universal progression from feudalism to more centralized governance, the recurring cycles of empire building and collapse. Particularly significant was their discovery of how these patterns interacted with free will, creating a complex dance between destiny and choice that shaped human history. The researchers documented how individuals and societies could temporarily deviate from these patterns but never escape their fundamental influence, much like planets orbiting a star, capable of elliptical paths but always bound by gravitational forces. The researchers' prolonged temporal displacement began revealing a startling truth about their own existence. They were no longer simply observers of history, but had become integral components of humanity's developmental process. One team member, experiencing the dawn of agriculture, realized their presence had subtly influenced crop selection patterns that would shape regional cuisines for millennia. Another, witnessing the development of early writing systems, discovered their unconscious suggestions had guided the evolution of symbolic representation in ways that rippled through linguistic development. The most profound revelation came when they collectively recognized how their shared consciousness had been acting as a form of temporal scaffolding, supporting humanity's progress through critical evolutionary stages. During the Renaissance, one researcher documented how their presence had helped stabilize the delicate balance between religious authority and scientific inquiry, preventing either from dominating completely and stalling intellectual advancement. Another, experiencing the Industrial Revolution, realized their influence had moderated the pace of technological change, ensuring society could adapt without collapsing under the weight of too rapid transformation. The researchers developed a theory they termed temporal guardianship, suggesting that similar entities, whether human or otherwise, had likely existed throughout history, guiding civilization through its most vulnerable periods. This concept explained numerous historical anomalies, sudden technological leaps that shouldn't have been possible given existing knowledge, periods of remarkable stability during times of potential chaos, and the consistent emergence of visionary leaders precisely when needed. They documented how their presence created what amounted to temporal checkpoints, moments where historical trajectories could be gently nudged toward more stable or beneficial paths without violating the fundamental integrity of human agency. The realization transformed their understanding of their role from accidental time travelers to essential participants in humanity's ongoing evolution, suggesting that their displacement might have been not just coincidence but cosmic necessity. As the researchers neared the culmination of their temporal journey, they encountered phenomena suggesting their displacement had created permanent alterations in the fabric of time itself. One team member, returning repeatedly to observe the same historical period, discovered subtle variations with each visit, buildings slightly altered in design, historical figures demonstrating different personality traits, technological innovations appearing in modified forms. Another researcher documented how their presence had created temporal echoes that persisted across multiple timelines, resulting in what appeared to be ghostly repetitions of historical events unfolding simultaneously in different dimensions. The most significant manifestation emerged when they attempted to map their influence across history, revealing what they termed temporal fractals, self-similar patterns repeating across different scales of time and space. These fractals suggested their displacement had fundamentally rewritten certain aspects of human development, creating alternate branches of possibility that coexisted with established historical narratives. The researchers observed how their interventions had generated what amounted to temporal antibodies, natural corrective mechanisms that attempted to maintain historical integrity while accommodating necessary changes. Particularly fascinating was their discovery of echo chambers in time, periods where their influence had created stable loops of causality that resisted alteration, preserving crucial aspects of human development while allowing other elements to evolve freely. These phenomena suggested that time itself possessed a form of intelligence, capable of integrating paradoxes and inconsistencies into a coherent whole. The researchers documented how their presence had effectively created a new layer of historical reality, one that acknowledged and incorporated their interventions as legitimate components of human progress rather than aberrations to be corrected. The researchers' return to their original time period marked both an ending and a beginning, as they emerged from their temporal odyssey forever changed. Their consciousness, now imprinted with centuries of human experience, functioned on multiple temporal planes simultaneously, perceiving the present as a convergence point of countless historical threads. The laboratory where their journey began felt both familiar and alien, its sterile surfaces and precise instruments seeming quaint compared to the vast complexity of human history they'd witnessed. As they reunited, sharing their experiences through a newly developed form of direct neural communication, they realized their displacement had transformed them into something beyond mere humans, living archives of civilization's development, capable of accessing any point in history through concentrated thought. Their presence in the present created subtle ripples, as their expanded awareness influenced everything from technological innovation to social policy. The most profound change manifested in their understanding of time itself, no longer a linear progression but a multidimensional tapestry where past, present, and future existed in constant dialogue. They established protocols for managing their newfound abilities, creating systems to ensure their influence remained constructive rather than disruptive. Their final conclusion, documented in a comprehensive temporal thesis, proposed that humanity's greatest challenge lay not in mastering time travel but in learning to exist harmoniously across multiple temporal dimensions. As they prepared to share their findings with the world, they understood their journey had merely opened the door to understanding time's true nature, leaving countless mysteries still to explore. Remember to subscribe for more mind-bending journeys through the fabric of reality, where every click brings you closer to unlocking the universe's deepest secrets.